time is running out as we have one last match here for WCS Winter Americas. One final match. And speaking of time, it is going to be time in another one of those matches as he moves down to the decider match. I'm Fear Dragon. I'm joined by Zombie Grub here. We got a Terran versus Terran, Zombie Grub.
Are you excited to cast this here?
I am so excited because first of all, I get my boy Diego Kelazhur, who I'm a huge fan of. But also, Estrella just advanced out in first place. I don't want to say that I called it. All I want to say is I asked Estrella for a quote because he was so excited after this. And all he had to say to me was, this game is too easy.
That's what he said.
That's actually what he said.
That's actually what he said.
I am just conveying the message to you guys for him.
He said some other things, too.
He did say some other things. He said, now I can finally go back to focusing on school instead of just playing StarCraft every day.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
But guys, we're moving into the decider match. Estrella advances on to the round robin, but now Time has a second shot at life as he has to face off versus Kelazhur here. Now the good news for Time is that he has a really good win record versus Kelazhur. He's beaten him every single time they face off against each other, all 3 times. And the last time was at WCS Montreal last year in the group stages where he managed to beat Kelazhur.
See, I told you, I remembered they played before. You're the one looking it up. So, I knew it, and I figured it was relatively recently.
You did call it. You did call it.
Relatively. Yeah, that was back when Kelazhur was kind of making the rumor mills of like him maybe moving, right? He hadn't actually done it yet, I think. He was just planning on it.
Yeah.
He was also still technically full-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The low-key maybe saying, like, I think I'm probably going to do this and stuff. And I think it was actually, I remember it was at the airport. I was really confused because I was sitting next to Kelazhur at the airport. We were both waiting for our flights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we're both just sitting on our phones looking at Twitter. And I see a new tweet pop up from Kelazhur saying, hey, I'm going part-time, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be full-time. I like look over at Kelazhur, and he's just sitting there on his phone. That was weird.
Millennials, am I right, guys?
I thought he didn't tell me in advance.
All right. Brand new best of 3 for the decider match. In the top left on Port Alexander, it is the blue Terran Time.
And down in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, it is the red Terran player from Panda Global. He's Kelazhur. Or as Jeff Out of Control Robinson likes to call him, Kel'Thuzad.
Or as Artosis likes to call him, Kelazhur.
Kelazhur.
He's Kelazhur about how to say Kelazhur.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Hey.
That was solid.
The reason I brought up the exact moment of when, Kelazhur decided to go part-time or whatever is because that was kind of, I guess, one of those like weird, like, well, he's probably already thought about it. He probably maybe is putting in less hours. But now we're here, September 9th, 4 or 5 months later.
Bath on stream, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, God. I just couldn't remember when Montreal was. That was a problem. 4 or 5 months later, that he has been part-time. He has moved over to the Netherlands and has been going to school and has a girlfriend and, and so on and so forth. And as you keep discussing, right, you keep bringing up this whole, like, trajectory thing where maybe they get a little bit better because they're not, as nervous, and then they just start to just dive off because their mechanics start to fall behind. And that seems to maybe be happening for Kelazhur. 3 weeks ago when I saw him, a month ago, whatever, it seemed like he was just actually better than before, and now we're getting that whole, like, well, maybe he's doing these weird things because he doesn't trust his mechanics as much.
That's possible.
And he's maybe every time we look back at him, he doesn't have quite as much stuff as he maybe would.
Yeah, what is kind of cool is that I have seen Kelazhur still be pretty active, not necessarily just in terms of tournament play and stuff, which I think is a lot of what we're talking about right now, but I know he's been very active and still being communicative with a lot of the other StarCraft players in the scene. Mm-hmm. He was part of Lambo's actual semi-talk show thing that he had like a viewing party on his stream during WCS. Yeah. So there were him and a bunch of other pro players were watching WCS on Lambo's stream. I don't think he's done another one, otherwise I would do a shout out for that. But I know he's been involved. I know he's been chatting with people. He's been learning about what other people have been doing. We'll see what he's busting out. But so far, the SCV moves forward, trying to get a bit of a HP edge on his opponent's Reaper. But with the extra Marine out, seems like Time is able to push that back. Kelazhur just keeping the Reaper alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how their last series went down, but it was so long ago. Even really a different meta of TvT. That certainly will be different here. I think they both practice under the same, like, you know, copying the Korean style of things. Kelazhur might have more tricky builds, as he does talk to all those players you're talking about. He is on the European server, but I think where Time showcased maybe some very, like, well, Hero Marine in particular, I guess.
Yeah.
TvT. And that style did end up tripping up Hero Marine a lot. I don't think we'll have the same problem here versus Kelazhur.
Yeah, absolutely. And Time at Montreal, specifically, like you said, specifically versus Hero Marine, but just in general, showcased that his TvT was a little bit more dominant than the European TvT understanding. At least it seemed that way. But like you said, a lot of time has passed. And also, we've had a huge, massive end-of-the-year balance patch, so things have changed. And we'll see how things shape up now as Kelazhur pokes his way across the map a second time with the Reaper and Hellion, but the bunker going up is kind of interesting.
One quick note before we start analyzing the builds here is that they are playing on West. So Time from China, Kelazhur from Europe. It is a little less favorable for...
Well, I think both of them are probably not super enthusiastic about it, but it's worse for Kelazhur probably.
Yeah, Time could, the default is West, so he gets kind of what his preferences. So yeah, just quickly mentioning that. Then we can talk about the builds. It was a 1-rack expand for both parties. Very small skirmishes have happened, as we see on screen. That didn't really add up to very much. Bit more of a defensive play from Time with the bunker, but still, you see the production tab. Cyclone, Raven for both parties. I think they're both reactoring at Marines right now. We'll see them maybe both transfer that reactor to the starport and go to Vikings. Very typical TvT openers.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I watch TvT openers or just TvT games in general, the economies obviously, it's StarCraft, economies make a difference, but compared to the other matchups, it's a lot more about how the armies engage, whether or not the siege tanks or siege up are in the right position, how the focus fire goes down. A lot of that stuff has a much more significant impact rather than I have 3 or 4 extra Marines.
Okay, so obviously, decisively, Kelazhur does not swap that starport off to really take control of the early game Viking tank push. He's going to go into Stim, transfer that off to a reactor. Time, slightly behind him, did go for 2 Ravens. And as such, I think that he would go for the swap off. He's going to go for the push that Kelazhur is going to have a little bit of trouble with, actually, in the beginning. This is almost always how it goes. You do the push, they don't have their own Vikings, they don't have combat shields quite yet, even if they do have Stim. And if you catch them still in the natural or maybe hold up in the main, then the positioning is just too strong for the tank pusher. But if they find you, and they have all their upgrades done, then suddenly you're the one that's caught in position, and you don't have as free-flowing of an army. They're just able to maneuver on the map.
Okay, we'll see when Kelazhur catches wind of all of this. He does have all of his units positioned at the front, so he will see that push out that you're talking about. First 2 Vikings here, the bunker getting salvaged, and I think the Hellion gonna run by at nearly the perfect time if he's paying attention to notice all this army. Gets a decent shot off on those Marines. By the way, if you go for those Vikings, you're not gonna have our medevacs for a bit.
Yeah, you are sacrificing the more typical mid-game TvT in the hopes that the early game goes in your favor. Kelazhur is no stranger to this idea. He has done this build many times himself and knows what's weak and strong against it.
Ooh.
Grabs a Cyclone. That is a very nice start. He gets a little bit ahead of his natural so he doesn't get choked in, and he can start defending a little bit sooner.
You can see that Cyclone poaching forward, loving the idea of being able to snipe off one of the Vikings or one of the Ravens. Even just softening one up is definitely a nice little start here. Ravens poaching forward here for Time. He wants to get the interference matrix off on that siege tank, and Kelazhur's job is to try and at least delay that or potentially entirely prevent it, but the Ravens should be able to get close enough now that they will be able to probably get those interference matrices off once he wants them. Ooh, but Kelazhur, oh my god, risky gambit, goes in from behind with the Raven, moves forward, gets both of the siege tanks, jumps on this army, but does he have enough?
He doesn't. The auto turrets took up all of the threat from the tanks, especially. They were targeting the auto turrets. The Marines also do get shredded by them or just waste shots on them. So I was just about to discuss the idea that Kelazhur isn't the one that has to be afraid of being interference matrix, because his whole power is the amount of Marines he has. But Time might have been, a little afraid. We saw it happen, and it actually still was in Time's favor, and now you got to wonder if Kelazhur made a huge mistake. His combat shield has only just begun recently. He's now being encroached on by a Liberator, and I think that one bad breakout could lead to a snowball.
Okay, we're starting to see Time move his way forward. That Liberator has an opportunity to siege up once again closer, forcing all 3 of Kelazhur's tanks unsieged, takes 2 shots on one of those tanks, might even want to repair that back up so it doesn't immediately die, and that's exactly what he's going to do. But once again, Liberators moves further forward over and over and over again, not quite in range of the tanks.
You kidding me? That tank's little pinky toe should be shot right now.
It's unsieged because you knock out its siege weapon.
That's okay. That is a huge drop, but one medevac almost instantly going down there. This might still be enough.
That ends up being enough to clean up maybe the no, the Marines are still enough there for time. I didn't even see that the Marines are still alive.
Yeah, you thought like 20 Marines are going to unload from Kelazhur, and then only like 10 did, and you're like, oh. No.
Yeah, you lost a lot of the Marines there. He had +1 weapons advantage over his opponent as well, but this is only going to become harder for Kelazhur because time has combat shields, +1 weapons, +1 armor, all finishing up now.
Yeah. Boy, that mule was, I think, a bad scan. So, yeah, I think that's what happened there. So this is it's just bad news for Kelazhur. He's now had 2 bad breaks, and as such, he probably is going to lose this TvT. He's fallen extremely behind, and now he's just trying to get to the Vikings. It's not going to work out. He misrallies them. He's going to go for a drop. Nope, not even. Just taps out. GG.
Time takes the first game off of a solid offensive push there. A typical thing that you end up seeing in Terran versus Terran. Kelazhur maybe just getting a little over-eager there, feeling like he was going to be able to break that with the interference matrices on the siege tanks, but he didn't quite have enough or good enough positioning there. You mentioned the auto turrets as well being a big factor.
Yeah, it's surprising how often auto turrets are forgotten about, right? Because there are such big spells. Interference matrix, boom, Colossus gone, that's huge. Anti-armor missile, suddenly all these high DPS units, that's huge. Auto turret sometimes feels like it gets a little forgotten, lost behind, but one of its biggest strengths is that it has a stupidly high threat. It is the highest, as far as I know.
And it has a decent amount of HP. Like, it doesn't last very long, but it soaks up a lot of damage.
And does a decent amount of damage, too. To combat shieldless Marines, you're getting fired on by at least 1 tank left over. Like, that all added up. I think Kelazhur did go for a bit of a fancier, I guess that's what I'm going to use, break on that than what you would usually expect. There is a totally fine response where he just continues buying time and waits for combat shields, gets an arc, and then goes. That probably would have done the trick, but then he would have been still a little behind because his 30C was later, and time was still like only slightly behind on those upgrades. But I think hindsight 2020, that would have been the better option. Just that he saw an opening, it wasn't actually there.
Well, Kelazhur's going to have to figure out a better response if he ends up facing off against the same kind of push from time. Of course, the maps are going to play a huge impact in these kind of trades and these engagements where you may decide to make the defense, etc. happen. But we move on to Kyra's Junction for map number 2. The players are ready, and we're going to get this next game underway. This is the decider match. Remember, this is the last match for our round of 16. That means that the winner of this match, if time wins one more game here, he's going to move on to that round robin. Kelazhur will get knocked out. Kelazhur has to win 2 games in a row now in order to advance out.
I totally believe in it. TvT between 2 relatively equally skilled players easily goes either way, even off the deficit of a game. And I know that Kelazhur, at one point, he was taking maps off of seemingly stronger opponents with similar builds to what Time did. So he might even just say, okay, you know what? Fine, I have to play that style of TvT. Yeah, I will. You see how you like it.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just laughing because I noticed that Time is in Scarlet's clan, which we'll maybe highlight in a second when we do the intro for him. But we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Top of the red Terran player from Panda Global. He is Kelazhur.
In the top left, as the blue Terran team newbie, it is Time.
That clan is on 300 ping.
Yes.
Clearly representing the number of pixels in their favorite PNG, which is for his clan logo. That's why you can't see it.
What does PNG stand for?
Yeah, I used to know this. Because I had to look into how PNGs were encoded once.
Well, we'll never know. I know, obviously.
Portable
but
network graphics.
I won't
apparently.
tell you. No, producer! No!
What are you talking about? I just remembered a little bit later on.
Yeah, okay. You have such confidence, too.
Such confidence.
All right, whatever. Now we know.
Well, we do have an SCV scout over here from Time. Kelazhur just gonna, looks like, probably rely on the first Reaper to get his own scouting information, but I wonder if Time is a little bit concerned about maybe a proxy or something.
Well, you really should be if you're gonna 1-ox expand, which Time is doing, but Kelazhur isn't. So if Kelazhur even was worried about a 2-racks, even with the ping issues being there for both sides, he would have the wall off on this map and the builds in general in this matchup to deal with it.
That's a cute wall right there.
Yeah, and it's Kelazhur is the first guy I saw do this, actually. And he's done it on one other map that I can't remember.
And most importantly, this is going to wall off versus Reapers. So the Reaper hop-off cliff kind of negated entirely because it walls off both the normal ramp and the Reaper hop-off spot. So this is going to allow Kelazhur to safely move his Reaper all the way across the map and not have to worry about dealing with a Reaper on his own side.
We do see him taking SCVs off of gas, so he is going to expand off of this, and this is what Time should expect. I think Nate and I have talked about it a little bit, that the full-on 1-1-1 just isn't really powerful enough anymore against the defensive units that Terrans now naturally get. It's almost always good to get a Cyclone, and almost always good/required to get a Raven.
Yep, very difficult to win out on those early game skirmishes. We see Kelazhur actually scouting around for potential proxy, likely around this time. Because remember, he didn't actually get any scouting information whatsoever. He didn't send any units across the map, so if there was maybe a proxy starport or something coming up, could have been around this time. But doesn't find one right now and sends his units across the map. You can already see the Time is ready to intercept a Reaper that goes up to the hop-up cliff. But with only one Marine in the bunker, is that something you consider running by to snipe off an SCV in the low ground?
Nah, it's not going to be worth it. Yeah, Time's going with the whole, like, I don't care for this micro game, buddy. But she's going to have to play anyways. The Hellion's about to pop out, which should be enough.
Yeah. Snipes off one of the Reapers. The second Reaper for Time still stays alive. And Kelazhur's going to have to back off for now. The bunker should be able to zone out a majority of these units now.
Yeah. As I said, doesn't want to play that micro game. Because if he plays it wrong, and Kelazhur just has, in general, good micro, then suddenly his CC is lifted, and he is behind. As it is, he's still in that tiny bit of head position that you get when you don't factory expand. Just, like, seriously not that much. Very fast third gas from both players here, so I do think we're going to see similar openers to the last game. Certainly Time going to do the same thing, because why not? It worked out so darn well.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Kelazhur, of course, getting up still his own Raven behind all of this. Has that tech lab on the factory, so he's going to get up his first siege tank just a little bit faster, and that is going to allow him to maybe sneak a bit ahead in terms of the siege tank count this game.
Yeah, I guess so. He will be ahead in that. There's a really stupid thing that happens, though, if they're both going to go for the same exact composition. We've seen this before, where it's just whoever gets a better interference matrix. And then there's times that they all get the interference matrices, and they're just like, oh, never mind. I guess we won't fight each other. And just like, oh, okay. TvT can be quite silly, but if Time's not going to go for his own tanks and Kelazhur does get the first push out, it's weird, right? Because the Cyclone can technically get one good lock on and then just ruin Kelazhur's day, but then it also could look really stupid just being holed up in the natural.
Ooh, okay, I guess Kelazhur did get a Cyclone. I thought he skipped it to get up a siege tank, but no, he's going to lock onto the bunker, force a couple of SCVs to pull off to repair. I think one hit from the Cyclone of Time does force Kelazhur back, because now he knows in a lock-on battle, he will likely lose that fight.
I'm pretty sure that Kelazhur's going to be the first one to move out. Time is getting a conservative third CC, which makes sense in TvT. Kelazhur is going for the on-location third CC, which makes sense for TvT as we see it, as we know it in general. So I actually like Kelazhur's choice to do that better. Scan goes down to see... Actually, it might be a little mistimed, to be honest, because it's going to see the second Raven still producing, so it doesn't actually know if it's going to swap off to the
So you're saying that Time might miss what he's seeing and that it's mistimed?
Yes, that's actually what I said. It's mistimed.
Okay, cool.
He's Mr. Time, and this is mistimed.
Well played. Reactor settling down on that starport. It is going to be double Viking production first here from Kelazhur, which does line up with your thought about it being a quick push out over here. And Kelazhur, of course, with a quick push out, is already on this side of the map. This is a great map if you can get up to that little ledge area where Kelazhur is going.
No!
Siege up that production. Guess what's going to be in range? That tech lab with Stim might be very, very close to being in range.
We got the auto turrets coming down to help combat the air as well as any tank shots, which it didn't really help out a ton with. But the Cyclone might get a free Viking. Yeah, it's going to get it. Whoop.
Nice. That is very solid, because remember that Kelazhur does have some of his own Vikings making their way across the map right now. And, okay, looks like he's going to just back off. Did the Vikings did make their way across the map. Is he just regrouping, or is he actually looking to pull back?
He's just regrouping. I think he still has time to pressure Time just shut up. You can't laugh every time I do it. Because he knows that there's still no way that Time's avoiding this issue. There's no medevacs to drop and stop this third CC. There's no there's no huge timing of, for instance, combat shield that's about to hit him right now. You need to stop. I will slap you silly.
Okay, the time has come, and Kelazhur is going to be sieging up the low ground, preventing that command center from landing on the low ground. And we see that Time is trying to make his way forward gradually with the siege tanks. He's got his Ravens still around, and they are sitting at full hit points, whereas Kelazhur has one of his very low on hit points. Time is getting very close to cutting out some of the reinforcing path here for Kelazhur. I always get a little bit worried. We end up seeing the big siege up here from Time. Kelazhur already sieged up, but his siege tanks getting focused right down by the Marines.
Oh, that was not a great fight for Kelazhur.
Oh.
He got a concave on top of him, and one of his Ravens didn't do anything. It was already low, and he couldn't set down the auto turrets because it was just, well, there's some micro issues there. But the Vikings desperately try and get some type of damage done or buy time. They don't really do that. These ones awkwardly go on home. Kelazhur is not...
Is he going to sack one for a... No, okay. I'm glad he's retreating back.
Yeah, I think that is the better choice. So Time, initially a bit of trouble, turned on Kelazhur, but Kelazhur was getting ahead in so many other ways with the economy that I think losing that army fight's not going to determine the game, but it was a hefty loss.
Yeah, especially losing out on the siege tank wars, it does mean that he's now going to be down 2 siege tanks, assuming continuous production of tanks from both sides. He's going to be falling. Actually, he doesn't even have a siege tank queued right now, so he's going to be falling even further behind on that tank production.
You know what? I might take back that statement. So I feel like Kelazhur maybe went a little too into the Vikings. Maybe that was it. But ultimately, something happened where he was later to these barracks, despite having a similar composition and similar time third CCs, just on location versus not. He was later to the additional 2 barracks, which means that Time's initial grab of the army supply lead, because he won the fight, is now going to be like maybe even more by the time he's ready to move out. Kelazhur is only just now getting his pump on, man. Like, he's getting those Marines out. I'm
actually legitimately confused sometimes when you're talking now because I just hear the word time
too
often.
Focusing on it.
Oh, okay. We do have a push out over here with a couple of units in the medevacs or around the medevacs, getting ready to try and put on some harassment. We haven't really seen light pressure so far in the series. It's all just been, let's go for a big attack at the front with my entire main army and kind of entrench myself in a position there. So we'll see if Kelazhur is going to be effective here. Kelazhur is maybe going to actually catch wind of the 4th base being established, right as Kelazhur is starting his own 4th base. But no, ends up pulling back, just leaves a single Marine there, and he's going to scout it out, but no pressure really put on.
Okay. I was worried the Time was going to have a better production here, but he doesn't.
Oh, sniping up 2 medevacs, and only loses a few Marines. Not bad for Kelazhur.
Actually, they've been keeping up relatively even army supplies. Only down by 10. Kelazhur defender's advantage going to kick in. Be no problem to defend against this.
Yeah, I am a little bit worried for Kelazhur, though. He's still sitting down about 15 or 16 Marines, which is about 30% of the, or I would say 60% of the Marines that Time has. You're starting to see that big stim forward from Time. He catches a lot of the tanks for Kelazhur, and suddenly this 3rd base has been opened wide up.
Yeah, if his tanks were any closer, this would be seriously bad, but at least they weren't in range of the CC or these tanks now protecting the CC. In fact, he mispositions them and gets them blown away.
Yep. One more tank shot from Kelazhur does seal the deal. Pushes those siege tanks outside the range of the orbital command for a bit. And wow, Kelazhur has a big attack at his front door and says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go attack you instead. See how you like it.
I think that's the right call. He did manage to keep a hold on his 3rd CC. It wasn't broken. And going for an attack here would kill at least 1 building command center. Now 2 building command centers. Unfortunately, if he goes towards the 3rd or the natural, there are a ton of units ready to defend against that.
That is where his drop is, unfortunately, for Kelazhur going right now, though, as it was situated to go over to the 3rd base, but now he's moving his way up, and he's going to encounter the main secondary force.
Yeah, that's a bad thing to see right there. He wanted to catch him by surprise, instead caught the other half of the army. Now getting sandwiched.
That's not the place to go. Kelazhur is going to trade out the best he can, but he's going to be losing not only Marines, but potentially some of these medevacs. Keeps 4 Marines alive somehow, but he is down a fair amount of that supply. And a lot of his supply is just those 11 Marines being produced and 2 Liberators being produced, but aren't here just yet.
Well, now Time definitely has the economic advantage. He's already put it into production. Double factory, more starports. Going for the break, but his Marines were already injured. Keep in mind.
Oh, God, those siege tank shots from Time, though, take out the entire south flank of Marines from Kelazhur, and now with very few Marines left over, only the ones rallying on out. Time makes an aggressive move, tries to drop on top of the siege tank, is not able to make it work, but he's been able to take out so many tanks of Kelazhur. It is now 5-1.
And I think the Marines being low on health is the only reason it looks even at all. It really isn't. Kelazhur just falling behind in the TvT, taps out. GG. Time moves on out of the group into the round robin.
Congrats to Time. He was a guy that I think impressed a lot of people last year at Montreal. Had a great run. We were talking about how he was able to beat Hero Marine and a bunch of other really solid players. I think he got all the way to the semifinals, was
Yes.
it? Semifinals run at Montreal, and getting a great start here in 2019 with WCS Winter.
Absolutely. That was a very good TvT. Kelazhur, I'm kind of feeling what you're talking about. Like maybe it's just starting to slip off because he's not full-time. So he, still a contender, but Time proved to us last year he is going to be on our radar for some time much more. Kelazhur kind of getting ready to break up with us, honestly. He's like, he's going part-time, got a girlfriend. Just, you're just a side thing. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
I'm not sure his girlfriend is into the open relationship, but we'll appreciate the time that Kelazhur gives us nonetheless, as he's still looking to be a strong contender for a lot of the other tournaments regardless. We take a look at a recap of today's games. You see that we had some pretty awesome Zerg versus Terran today, especially I would say some Zerg or Protoss versus Terran that I really enjoyed as a big Estrella fan. So congratulations to Estrella and Time, who both advanced out of the group and are our last 2 players to close out the round of 16 for both Europe and North America, or I should say Americas.
Please.
Because we all know that China isn't part of North America, but it's part of Americas.
Yeah, there's at least 4 Americas, Fear Dragon.
I think actually 5, right?
I said at least 4.
At
I
least
wasn't
4.
wrong.
You're not wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that is going to do it for our games today, but we do have a bunch of awesome graphics that will kind of show you guys any of the other the days that you guys have missed out on. As you guys can see over here, Group A from Europe, we ended up having Raynor and Drogo advancing on out. 2 really, really awesome players. Raynor has a lot of hype around him. Drogo looked a little bit iffy to start with, but then he started really looking quite solid as we ended up seeing him play in the round of 16. I'm really looking forward to him. And of course, we're going to see over here from America's Group A, we had Scarlet and Cham advancing on. Scarlet, I think no surprise. Cham looking super good in that Zerg versus Terran, is able to beat out Special. Looking forward to seeing them in the Americas side of the round robin. And then from Europe, Group B, I think we had Lambo and Hero Marine. So I got a Zerg and a Terran in the mix there. Lambo, I think, no big surprise for a lot of people. And then Hero Marine also looking pretty solid, being able to knock out Euthermal and Hate Me.
Yeah, that's the big surprise. Euthermal getting knocked out. Don't go on my camera, please.
You were not prepared for that. From America's Group B, you guys can see over here that we had Masa and Probe advancing on out. I think we had Firefly and Coffee putting up a good fight, but we ended up having the Australian and the Canadian advancing on rather than the Chinese players. And I believe now we go on to Group C of Europe, as we got... this is America's. Neeb and Puck, the 2 Protoss players. I think this wasn't a massive surprise for most people. Epic was feeling really sick that day, which was really unfortunate, but Neeb and Puck definitely played extremely well. And unfortunately, Canning, the legend, decided to give his good graces and give Neeb some more opportunities. He could use a confidence boost here and there.
Yeah, he could use the money.
Exactly.
He hasn't made enough.
And of course, from Group C, we ended up having a Laser and Showtime advancing on from Europe. So we got that Zerg and Protoss, as you guys can see. A little bit scarcer for Europe on the Terran players, but got a lot of good Zergs and a lot of good Protoss players.
A little bit, Fear Dragon.
Just a little bit. We had 50% of the Terrans from the round of 32 sorry, from the round of 16, advance onto the round robin. 50% of them, Zombie Grub. I don't know that 50% of the Protoss players advance from the round of 16. And by 50%, I mean 50% of 2.
I know what you meant. Everyone knows what you
I just want to make sure everyone else knows what I mean.
Yeah, before that stat gets posted on Reddit, and they're like, Fear Dragon says the game
50% of the
completely
Terran
balanced.
players advanced. Guys, can we please just get Blink lowered to 50-50?
Oh my god. Can we please increase the bunker build time by 5 seconds? That would fix everything.
But it's going to be a really, really great day for the round robin. Now, unfortunately for you guys, it does mean that WCS Winter is going to come to a little bit of a hiatus for a bit because, you know what? As much fun as WCS Winter has been, we also have a lot of other awesome StarCraft events coming up. I am TvT, WESG, the Pizza Pie Weekly. There's too much StarCraft for us to handle, so we have to just hold out, take a little bit of a break, take a bit of a breather before we go into that round robin, give the players a little bit of time to study up on the other 7 players in their groups, and I believe that's going to be happening in about a month. But guys, keep an eye out for that. Keep watching some great StarCraft. Make sure you check out that war chest and pick it up if you haven't already. And until then, we'll see you next time. Happy StarCrafting.